Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today there was a new build implemented on Shadowlands Beta. This build brought a decent bit of changes to Warlock. I'm going to admit this is around like the second week of tuning or so. Blizzard even made a blue post this week saying tuning has pretty much begun for most classes in Shadowlands, and I was expecting some changes, probably nerfs to destruction and affliction. However, we did not get those. If anything, we pretty much got a buff. So I want to talk to you guys about those changes today. Some are based around talents, some are based on abilities, some are legendaries, some are covenants. There's a lot of random changes. So I want to get into that today and just dissect all these changes. Now, quick shameless plug here. Any weak auras, profiles, or add-ons you see here are available to you guys for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by and grab them, feel free to do so anytime. So let's start off with the legendary effects that they, I guess, changed for the better today. So the first legendary effect we have here is... Where's the Warlock one? Here we go. Sorry. Sacrilash's Dark Strike. This is the corruption slow ring, essentially, from Legion. It's not really a ring anymore. It can go on either a pair of legs or a pair of feet, boots. Corruption, basically what they did with this, the damage amp is still there. However, they have corrected the tooltip to 60%. The tooltip initially read that it slows your targets by 15%. And in the feedback document that we gave, or that we wrote, I guess, edited a few weeks ago, we mentioned that the slow, it's cool to see this effect back, but a 15% slow is just not enough. It's not going to make a difference really in almost anything. A full 60% slow, however, is a lot. Now, I mean, things were different back in Legion, obviously, but with Warlocks having the corruption slow ring on, it made so many packs in Mythic Plus, in raiding, random boss fights, just trivial. You can think back to the Mage Tower as well. The corruption slow ring for that legendary hidden artifact skin made that fight a joke. We have returned to the full 60% slow buff on this legendary. Now, this was initially just applying the full 60% slow on beta, or I guess on alpha, since legendaries first came out. I just thought it was more or less they copied over the legendary effect from Legion and hadn't changed it yet. But they altered the tooltip to actually the 60% slow. Now the question is this going to last? Because this is a lot of utility in Mythic Plus. Can you stop rolling around, dude? Like, I swear. Quite often I talk about why Warlock is not good in Mythic Plus, and one of those reasons is we're good in Plus. What I'm getting at here is like when it comes to high-end meta comps and things, which 99.9% of the player base doesn't get involved in, myself included at this point, is that we don't bring a unique amount of utility, right? We bring health stones, but those are only really good past the first 3 uses because your whole group can get some before they walk into a dungeon. This is a piece of utility like what I was talking about. A 60% slow for every trash pack, which is permanent, playing Absolute Corruption is massive. This allows your tank to kite multiple packs. This is big. This is a lot of utility. This pushes Affliction even further, well, I won't say further ahead, but this makes Affliction even better in Mythic Plus. We have not really had the chance to test AF in Mythic Plus since the Malefic Rapture Mastery scaling was applied to Affliction, but AF is looking really, really good in Mythic Plus. There was a change to Madness of Azek here as well. This was also functioning like this with the 20% reduced cast time on beta, even in alpha, but they just updated the tooltip. So Chaos Bolt now deals 10% more damage. It reduces the cast time of Chaos Bolt by 20% for 3 seconds. A nice change. It's solid. I don't think it's as strong as other effects like Wilfred's or Triple Conflag, but it's still something. Claw of Enderith had a tooltip change here. Nothing, it's basically the same. No real changes as far as this goes. So there was also a blue post made. Now, there's a handful of changes here. However, most of them are positives in a sense. So the first one I want to talk about here, Ritual of Doom. Learned at level 37. Ritual of Doom is back. For those of you guys who were asking about it since BlizzCon, where is Ritual of Doom? They mentioned it a million times. It is back now. Basically, this summons a hostile Doom Guard that soon becomes automatically subjugated as an additional guardian pet for the Warlock. Currently, the Doom Guard lasts up to 15 minutes, has a small chance to break free from the subjugation at any time and attack your group. We're still working on the details of this ability, but we'd love to hear your feedback on it. So they've changed Enslave Demon to Subjugate Demon, the name of it, which is why they're using the word subjugation here. It says that it soon becomes automatically subjugated, enslaved. It spawns and attacks a random person who helps summon it with a Doom Bolt, and then it gets automatically enslaved. It's sort of cool, sort of flavorful. The thing is, this is on a 1 minute cooldown, or a 1 hour cooldown. You can summon one Doom Guard, and that doesn't reset on boss pulls. Nothing like that really happens. So you're going to have to, at this current point in time, it was dealing about 5% of my damage when comparing it to the rest of my abilities as far as demonology goes. It was hitting for about 475, I believe, and my Shadow Bolts are hitting for about 490 or so. It's very close to Shadow Bolt damage. Now, obviously, it depends how much haste, how fast it casts and things, but it's a decent bit of damage. It's important to note that Ritual of Doom is spec-wide. It works for Affliction, Destruction, and Demonology. The interesting thing here, though, is that when you summon a Doom Guard through Ritual of Doom, it does not replace your currently summoned pet. You have your Fel Guard, your Imp, your Fel Hunter, whatever, out with this pet. The very interesting thing is that this does count towards your demonic consumption health. Thalkiel's demonic consumption leeches health from the Doom Guard. We tested it multiple times. It leeches the same percentage amount of health from the Doom Guard that it does your Imps, your Dogs, your Fel Guard. So sort of how Decimating Bolt works with a lot of Destruction talents or Affliction talents, Drain Soul, they Drain Soul Legendary, Fire and Brimstone for Destro, things like that. This has a bit of an edge for Demonology. However, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, because the thing is, this ability is on a 1 hour cooldown, which means basically once every hour you're going to get a pull where you have a decent bit of extra damage. And on tight DPS checks and things, certain bosses, it's going to be, if a boss is tuned incredibly tight in Castle Nathria, having 3, 4, 5 Warlocks in the raid, bringing a Doom Guard every hour or so, whether you're playing Demonology or not, it's a decent bit of extra damage. And that just is a factor for every single fight. A 1 hour cooldown on a ability that essentially just gets you 5% extra damage or so. It's just odd. I understand why it's here. It's sort of that nostalgia, the Shadowlands returning abilities kind of thing, but I'm just a bit afraid as to what this is going to do for raiding, because they're, having an extra 5% damage is relevant. That's just a thing, whether it works with consumption or not. Now, this is indeed the first iteration of this, so hopefully things will potentially change with it. It's cool to see it back, and I don't think a simple fix would be just straight up having it replace your main pet. It probably would be a step in the right direction if you're trying to counteract, I guess, demonic consumption things, which I'm not even sure is intended. But Ritual of Doom is indeed back and learned at level 37. Now, they've also added in Rank 2 Fear, which is learned at level 52. Keep in mind, we do start leveling in Shadowlands at 50, so this is one of the abilities that you learn passively while leveling. You no longer suffer spell pushbacks while casting Fear. This functionally has existed in the past, but was never explicitly tooltipped anywhere. We removed the pushback resistance at first, but decided to bake it in as a ranked up spell instead. It's cool. It sort of feeds into that, hey, leveling matters, learn new abilities thing. Another big one here. Curse of Recklessness has been removed from the game. I'll say that again. Curse of Recklessness has been removed from the game. While we liked Warlocks being able to stop enemies from fleeing, that was like the least relevant part of this ability in the vast majority of scenarios. We didn't feel the physical damage increase was working out. Warlocks gave feedback that they felt required to use Curse of Recklessness on as many creatures as possible for the damage gain, and weren't having fun with the ability. Warlocks still have access to tongues, weakness, and exhaustion, and their repertoire of curses. So a lot of feedback has been given on curses. Personally, I didn't care a whole lot about having to refresh a curse every 2 minutes. Now, I think the curses should have been longer, and given the option of having a 10-minute curse or a 2-minute curse, obviously I'd take the 10-minute curse. I didn't care as much as other people necessarily, but overall, the 5% melee damage bonus off Recklessness is gone. So there's that. I have to say, I did not expect this change. I thought it was a bit odd that melee had 2 5% damage amps and the monk debuff, and now Curse of Recklessness, and range didn't really have everything like Curse of Elements, but hey, it's gone. So And I know what they're getting at here. The real issue, or one of the main issues, of course, of Recklessness, was that if you're a monk or a demon hunter, if you hit a mob with almost any ability, it passively applies that debuff to it for, I believe, 5 minutes, right? But you're hitting it over and over. The issue with Recklessness was that you're having to cast Recklessness on every single mob. If it was like an aura system, like we talked about before in the feedback document, or just a passive effect that you could choose and bake into your spells and abilities that apply to a mob when you attacked it, that would be different. But having to waste 2, 3, 4, 5 GCDs applying Recklessness to mobs that are going to be relevant enough, live long enough to get extra value out of that to make casting Recklessness worthwhile feels really clunky. And I don't like using the word clunky, but it does. It feels out of place. It feels just bad. So I get as to why they removed this curse. In the end, it's probably the best thing they could have done without overhauling the curse system. We still have tongues, weakness, and exhaustion. The last time I checked, weakness still works on bosses. So technically, there is some utility there. But as a whole, that curse of recklessness required Warlock, I guess, utility is gone. There was a minor change. I have Kilrog, once again attackable by enemy players, usable in rated PvP. There you go, I have Kilrog. So, Wreck is gone. We have Ritual of Doom back. But there were a handful of other changes made to Warlocks as well that I want to talk about here. First of all, this is not a buff to Agony as far as I've read. It's just a change to how it deals damage and spell power modifier. It's fine. So, one thing here, they've moved Shadow's Embrace, being a passive ability. It's still passive, but it's learned at level 58 and not 52. You learn the fear pushback, I believe, at level 52. Not a massive change, but it's important to keep in mind that when you read this, Shadow's Embrace is still indeed in the game. Just been pushed back to around the level 58 mark. Unstable Affliction. There are changes here. However, it's all the same. It still generates 1 soul shard if the target dies while affected by UA. It's still limited to 1. Nothing else is really changed here. Everything else is fine. They basically removed the limit to 1 ability here and just baked it into the actual, I guess, like just generic tooltip we have here. So there was a buff to Inevitable Demise. Now, ID was buffed from, I believe, 4% or so to 12%, like modifier-wise here. It's been buffed again. I can say that there's a Warlock in Guild who played it last week on the Dance Boss, which is like a council boss in Castle Nathria, and it was incredibly disappointing, the damage it dealt. So, hey, I mean, a 25% buff, well, I'll take it. We'll see how it goes, but I'm glad to see that they're giving ID some attention, because it does still need to be changed. In the end, I'd like to see this row broken up a bit as far as talent skill, because there's a bit of redundancy here with these abilities. You want them pretty much in the same setting, but let's be real here. We're not playing anything else in this row anyways, because Drain Soul, Decimating Bolt is just that good. So, Rampant Afflictions, they changed Malignant Affliction to make your UA applicable to 3 targets now. Basically, this is a new ability. Malignant Affliction is gone. One larger change here, I guess technically as well, they pushed the Baleful Invocation 5 Soul Shard gain in your Demonic Tyrant back to level 58 as well, to make space for the passive Fear pushback. The big thing here that I want to talk about is Roaring Blaze. I guess, okay, Summon Infernal Awakening, which is the impact damage, was nerfed a bit. Roaring Blaze, they've had to change Roaring Blaze so many times now to just clarify what spells it affects, everything else, and I don't think it's still even affecting the right spells. We'll look at it in game here. So, it used to say fire spells, and they sort of went back and forth as to what spells it affected. Technically, Chaos Bolt was a fire spell. It is chaos damage. Cataclysm, fire spell. Shadow Flame damage. Shadow Burn, Shadow Flame damage. It's fire damage. However, Roaring Blaze used to work as, it had to be a pure fire spell, like Rain of Fire, like Immolate, Conflag, Incinerate, Soulfire, Channel Demon Fire. But if it was anything else but a pure fire spell, even though like chaos damage and Shadow Flame damage is fire damage, it was not affected by Roaring Blaze. Well, I've gotten a lot of questions about the fire build that I made a video on about a month ago. They have now changed Roaring Blaze. So they've changed Roaring Blaze once again to clarify as to what spells it affects. Roaring Blaze, passive Conflagrate increases your Immolate, Incinerate, and Conflagrate damage to the target by 30% for 8 seconds, up from 6 seconds, which was buffed about a month ago. The thing here, if you select different spells here, for example, there's no mention of Soulfire here. If we go Soulfire, Soulfire is now mentioned here. So the tooltip updates retroactively whenever you change talents. Soulfire. So Soulfire damage is affected by Roaring Blaze. Let's go Shadowburn. Nothing with Shadowburn is affected by Roaring Blaze. Fire and Brimstone's the same. I mean, it's just Incinerate AoE damage, and Incinerate is already affected by that. Cataclysm. No Cataclysm damage. Channeled Demon Fire. There you go. Channeled Demon Fire is indeed affected. There's one spell here that was being buffed before that is not being buffed now. What spell is that? It's Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire is no longer being buffed by Roaring Blaze. Now, I honestly, like, I don't get as to why they don't want to buff Chaos Bolt and other abilities. I know it might be a bit of a tuning nightmare, but quite literally, it's just sort of frustrating because, like, Inferno, like, Fire and Brimstone, or Rain of Fire is a baseline fire spell. It is Rain of Fire. So I imagine they're trying to just move away from the actual Roaring Blaze affecting fire damage spells. And if that's the case, it's okay. This has more or less been our single target or two target cleave ability we've used for the most part. Rain of Chaos has been used on fights like Sun King Salvation, Mythic Plus. It's great with Soul Conduit and Fire and Brimstone. So if this is the way they want to take Roaring Blaze, that's fine. It's okay, I guess. I would love to see it affect Chaos Bolt, but if they don't want to do that, which I get might be a tuning nightmare with mastery scaling and all of that later on to the tier, Chaos Bolt does need a buff of sorts. However, Roaring Blaze still is a very strong option for us as far as most things go for Destruction Warlocks. Now, I did also want to mention that as far as PvP talents go, Entrenched in Flames has also been removed from the game. Now, I might not PvP a whole lot on my Warlock. I know Destro is incredibly overpowered in arenas right now, and I know that I've heard a good bit that Entrenched in Flame is a contributing factor to that in a sense. Complicate routes to target for 3 seconds, basically. It's pretty strong. I played with it myself for a while, and it's sad to see it go, but in the end, well, it probably needs to happen. I also wanted to clarify on one more thing here briefly, that they did not nerf an ending resolve. In a sense, they did, but not really. So they've broken it up into different ranks. So the first rank is a 20% damage reduction and granting immunity to interrupts, silence, and pushback effects. The rank 2 ability grants you the extra 20% damage reduction and pushback effect immunity, I guess. Basically, I am max level on Alpha right now, and Ending Resolve still is a 3-minute CD with a 40% DR. Spell, pushback, immunity, interrupt is all still here. So I don't know the actual level you get the second half of Ending Resolve. It's probably like mid-30s, I imagine, because it doesn't say it anywhere in the data mined info here. But to clarify all the questions I had earlier about UR being nerfed, it's not nerfed. It's still here. It's still good. So as a whole today, we gained a lot. You know, the Roaring Blaze thing is a bit unfortunate, but the Fire and Brimstone, or the Rain of Fire build was never going to last for Destro boys. I liked it. It was awesome. It was fun to play with, but it was never going to last. They don't want you actively spamming Rain of Fire on single target fights. And that was sort of probably they probably tried to address that last week a bit with the nerf to Rain of Fire, but this Roaring Blaze change certainly fixes that. So Corruption Slow Ring, I guess Slow Effect, incredibly powerful. The changes to Roaring Blaze, solid. It's fine. It is what it is. A lot of changes today, but like I said, I was expecting some actual nerfs to Af and Destro, and the fact that we haven't gotten any is pretty awesome. Warlock looks really good in Shadowlands, and Affliction stock is apparently still rising. Thanks for watching, dudes. I hope this video gave you all a better understanding of, I guess, the Warlock changes they made today on beta. I'm going to be real, like I said, I expected some nerfs across the board, potentially to Decimating Bolt and things like that, but even if they nerfed Destro and Aflock, the thing is, they're still two of the best specs in Shadowlands, and at any class, DPS-wise as a whole. It's probably Affliction Lock, number 1, Destro Lock, number 2, and then there's probably a decent drop-off between everybody else. So, once again, boys, any weak auras, profiles, add-ons you see here, feel free to swing by my Twitch and or hop in the community Discord down below and grab them anytime. Let me know what you guys think of these changes as well. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the Roaring Blaze change. Now, I know that everybody wants Chaos Bolt to be affected by it. I do as well. Feedback's been given on it. But just let me know what you guys think about that and the Corruption Slow change. I feel that even though 60% is, I mean, it's a lot. I feel like even a 40-ish% slow is probably enough. So I wouldn't necessarily be too surprised if they end up nerfing that or I guess tuning it back a little bit. But I guess we gotta wait and see. If you guys want to see more WoW content, be sure to smash the subscribe button below. And once again, any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll see you all again soon. I guess technically tomorrow for raid testing in about 11 hours on stream. Peace.